So today is Monday. We need to finish this costume by Friday. I mean, ideally Thursday because I need to leave on Friday. So that means I need to kind of pretty much build the entire foam part of the gun today. I don't know if that's gonna happen or not. Notoriously, I am not a fast prop maker or maker of anything. I'm very slow and ideally I'd like, 2 weeks to make this. But we don't have that, so we're just gonna make do with this. I was up till 2 AM last night and the past 3 nights making other parts of the costume, which you can see here. And that's also still not finished. And yeah, I've got the entire gun to make and the rest of the costume to finish. So, let's go. I first got my reference for Caitlyn by going on this Twitter account. They have full HD turnaround references for pretty much every skin in the league, and they also have Google Drive links to download the HD version. So I downloaded that, opened it up in Adobe Illustrator and scaled it to the correct size. I'm around 5'3" or 160 centimeters tall, so I made my gun 125 centimeters, which is pretty big, but Caitlyn's gun is supposed to be pretty big. I made an outline of that and then converted that to a format suitable for printing. Here is the YouTube video I used, which shows you how to make a template like this. Once you've got the outline arranged on your pages properly, then go to print. It's really important here that you choose do not scale or actual size, otherwise you'll end up with the wrong scale. And now you have a PDF of your pattern. Now let's go to the post office to print that out, because I do not own a printer. We got our printouts and our coffee, which we are definitely going to need today. So this is basically how I tape my patterns together. So they have registration marks along each side. So I'll slice the excess paper off each side and then realign the alignment marks and then tape the sheets together. I'm also cutting around the actual shape itself. You don't really have to do this, you could just leave it on the paper, but I think it's nice just to see all the sort of curves and stuff when it's cut out properly. Okay, I think this is sufficiently giant enough. So bear in mind too that I'm only 5'3", so this looks extra big next to me, but once I have the shoes on as well, it'll be more up here. And it won't look as big next to me, but I think I'm happy with the size of this. So now we begin making out foam. Can you see my face? So we have the first part of the gun. I do have a proper crafting desk over there now, but I do prefer the classic gremlin crafting position, which tends to be this. It's how I make most of my costumes in this position, and it helps me concentrate, especially for a major craft crunching day like today. So I'm using various EVA foam thicknesses. All from Polyprops. I will link them later. They are great, I'd recommend them. So I'm starting off with the barrel of the gun, which is the bit I'm most confused about, because in the model it has a really weird angle where it tapers off into here. So far I've got the barrel here, and that's 10mm foam, and I'll just be working from there. So this is kind of my weird way of patterning. I don't know how other people do it, but basically when it comes to tricky foam shapes like this, I basically just sort of make it up as I go along. With experience you get an idea of the sort of general shapes you need to achieve a particular 3D shape. So I'll start with that, and then I'll basically add on or take away from the shape where I need to. It's basically just trial and error. This is also why I won't be releasing a full pattern for this prop, with all the individual layers. I have added the PDF template that I cut out originally to my Patreon, which is available for anyone at any tier, but I've not added patterns just for all the individual layers of foam, because I was seriously rushing this, and in order to make it on time, there's no way I would have had time to make neat proper patterns, so I just sort of cut out shapes and just went with the flow. Okay, so next important thing to note, always wear proper safety gear when working with tools like this. I have eye protection, which is just my regular glasses, a respirator mask, and an apron. The first two are the most important part. You definitely, absolutely, 100% need one of these masks when you're working with contact glue. This is the only type of mask that will properly allow you to breathe when working with a strong fume like this. It also helps protect your face when you'll be standing, which is what I'm doing next. And it does have to be one of these proper respirator masks, not just a regular paper or fabric face mask. Here I'm using my Dremel, which is also called a rotary tool. It's basically got a sanding drum on one end which rotates, and then it sort of takes away material from the foam, and that's like one of the essential tools you'll need for foam making. After this I'm using a heat gun, which helps me shape the foam, and also because foam is porous, like it's made of like lots of little holes, the heat from the heat gun will help close those. Now I am applying contact glue to glue the two bits of foam together. This is the glue I always use for foam making. There's quite a few different brands. I'll link down in the caption the one that I use, but this is 100% the best glue for attaching foam pieces together. Basically, you apply it to both sides of the foam like this, wait for it to dry for around 30 seconds to a minute, and then it'll glue instantly. So just after 4 o'clock now, and this is where we're at. I did say I was a very slow worker. But this is probably the hardest part of the shape to get, just because it's like just a really weird shape and like lots of weird panels, but I figured it out. So now it's mostly just like building on that shape with like the trims, and then for this section here, thankfully I found some foam bevels that I already have. I got these again from Polyprops. They sell them in like pre-cut shapes basically. Yeah, so basically these are 30mm doubles, so they have like, you know, 3 centimeters on each side. And then you can just like shape them to that and then like cut them at the right angles, which is going to save me a ton of time. And you can get smaller ones too, so I can like make the hearts and stuff like those. And then yeah, this is just sort of like building on that shape, but we got the hardest bit done. And it looks decent, yeah. It looks okay, I think. Yeah. I just want to say that this part was absolutely awful to make. My hands are literally covered in foam dust. So is my face. But this kind of fits on here nicely, and that's going to form like the love heart shape once I've like sanded down this bit too, and then done the whole rest of the shape, which is for this love heart here. I thought the worst of the difficult shapes were out of the way, but apparently they're not. It's now nearly 6 PM, and this is all I've managed to do today. I didn't lie when I told you I was a slow worker. But yeah, I'm going to keep going for the rest of the day, hopefully just get as much done as I can. That's all I can do for now. So it's now the next day. I was up until like 2:30 last night. I'm so tired today, so I'm not going to show my face, but this is what we managed to do in the end yesterday. Again, like I said, I'm a slow worker, so it took me the entire day to do this, but it's pretty solid. It's very messy right now because it's covered in like pen and glue, but I'm going to go back in at the end and tidy all that up. But yeah, I think, like I said, most of the complex shapes are out of the way, I hope. And like half of this end is literally just like a PVC pipe, which is easy enough to build around. So I'm going to keep working on this for today, and I will update you as we go. Sorry, I'm wearing a mask right now, so my voice is kind of funny, but just a quick tip for anyone wanting to level up their foam work. You can get this really good stuff called adhesive cleaner, and it basically just is specifically designed to remove contact adhesive. So as you can see, this gun is like a total mess right now. It's covered in glue, but what you can do is I've put a bit of this solution into the cap here, so you can just dip a cloth in it and then apply it to wherever your excess glue is, and then just rub it on like that. It starts to come away, and you can sort of like smooth it around like that, and it will eventually rub off. Yeah, you can see like that, but it's just like eventually coming off. And the same works for these pen lines. They're a bit more difficult to get rid of. If you apply enough of it, eventually it'll come off. Sorry, this is literally the most disgusting thing to look at, of course, but yeah, adhesive cleaner. Highly recommend. So here I'm just carving away the foam before sanding, just because there's quite a lot of foam to remove first, and also because it's like really hard to get perfect circles when cutting foam. My tip here is, if you're using a craft knife like this, always change your blade regularly. Like, it makes such a difference that you wouldn't think it gets as dull as it does, but honestly I think I went through about like 20 blades over this whole gun, just because like I was cutting foam that much. And I know that might seem wasteful, but the blades aren't too expensive, and it really will speed up your work and just make your life a lot easier if you change them regularly. And this is a great example of why foam work is so messy, because as you can see, when I'm using a Dremel like this, it creates so much foam dust which just builds up over time and goes everywhere. And that's why I wasn't really talking a lot during these videos at this point, because I was honestly just like, I wanted to get over with as soon as possible. Here I'm just showing the two most useful ends for your Dremel tool. So you've got the rough sanding drum, which is the first one here, and I use that to get rid of most material, and then I go back in with the smoother grinding stone, I think it's called, and that sort of helps smooth out the foam. And yeah, the end product is something like this. So it is now 9 PM of day 2, and this is where we're looking at. Still missing a ton of details obviously, but we're getting there. I don't know if I will manage to finish building it tonight, but I really want to try and finish building it tonight so I can just spend tomorrow completely priming it all and just get that out of the way. But yeah, my room is a total mess now. Yeah, my tables are covered in foam dust, so are my hands, so are my legs, but keep going. By day 3, I was seriously feeling the crunch, and I was just not in the mood for filming anything, so I literally just powered through it the entire morning. Made such a mess, which stressed me out so much because I can't work when there's like mess around me, but I just kept going, powered through, nearly cried quite a few times. I was so far behind, but this is what we're like by the evening. It's now 8 PM on day 3, Wednesday, and the foam work is finally finished. Oh. As much as I'm like totally dead right now, like absolutely completely want to die dead, I think that like once I've had some rest and look back on this, I'm gonna be like so proud of this, because this is generally like the best foam prop that I've made in a long time. Like, these shapes are not easy. And like, yeah, like it's, I don't know, it's really hard to film this with one hand, but I'm really happy with this, I think. I plan to cover this section and that section in upholstery foam and like fabric, so it's going to look like a proper like upholstered thing. So what I'm doing is like painting all the rest of it and then adding those sections, and then I'll add like, you know, the strap and the extra trim on top of that section. So yeah. For filling in scenes like this where you've attached like two panels of foam together and they've not like joined perfectly, I like to use this stuff which is quick seal, and basically it's the same as like polyfill or any other type of filler, except it's actually flexible, which makes it a lot easier to apply. So basically you just, sorry, I'm literally just filming this in my kitchen. So you just put some on your finger like that, and then you apply it onto your seam like this. And then you would just get some water on your finger and then smooth it out. So yeah, what I do is I just get some water on my finger and then smooth out the seam like this. Sorry, this is literally the most like unprofessional setting. I've literally got my microwave right there. And then you just smooth it out. So because quick seal is flexible, it's got more of a rubbery base as opposed to something like polyfill, which is quite chalky, which means that you can sand polyfill, but because quick seal is like a rubbery flexible base, it means you can't really sand it in the same way, so instead you can smooth it out with water like this. Typically I would still use polyfill for anything like 3D printed props where they don't have to be flexible, but just for things like foam, I just think that quick seal adheres better to the foam, like it sticks better to the foam. And because this is a prop, it's obviously not really going to depend on like armour, but I still like to use it for props as well as armour. So it is now Thursday? Is it Thursday? I wasn't checking the days. But we're finally onto the priming and painting stage. So to prime this whole thing, I am using Heartthrob primer from Polypops, and this is basically a brush-on primer that remains like flexible once you add it on. So I usually do around 5 coats, I think. That's what I prefer, but there's like some areas of this that are a bit rougher where I've like Dremels it a lot, so I'm doing as much coats as I can. Seriously running out of time because this, in less than 24 hours, I need to leave and have everything ready. So we started adding a white base coat of just like spray primer to this, and then I'll be putting like the colours on top of that, so I'll insert some painting footage after that. But once this is done, then we can finally get onto the nice pretty colours and metallics, and I also bought some colour shift paint today, so we'll see how that goes, and like fingers crossed it looks good because I have high hopes for this gun. Please do not attempt what I am about to do. The following clips are merely included as an example of how you should not spray paint, and were fueled by sleep deprivation and desperation. This might be the stupidest thing I've done before for cosplay as far as spray painting goes. I'm going to attempt to spray this out my window because I don't have a garden. So yeah, don't do this. Don't do this at home. Don't be like me. I can't, no. Oh no, I don't like this.
Do it.
I don't
Do
like
it. Do it.
Are you sure?
Yes.
What if I die? Like, what if I actually...
You're not gonna die. It's safe.
It's not safe. Can you do it?
It's safe. Okay, fine, I'll do it. Get
Yeah,
up.
can you do it? So I decided to risk my boyfriend's life instead, and thankfully we both survived. And by 10 PM, which was way behind schedule, I had finally finished the painting. I used a base coat of this high coat primer, which I usually use for 3D prints, but it works for this too. And then on top of that, I put this pearly white Rust-Oleum paint, which I love for adding shimmer to anything white that I paint. I did try this colour shift paint, which was quite expensive, but as you can see, it barely shows up at all. It was meant to be like a sort of white to pinky purple tint, but it just was not visible at all, so I was pretty gutted about that. As I was seriously running out of time, I decided to do all of the colours by hand, so I have all of these Hex Flex paints, again from Polyprops, as well as this colour shift paint that I just got off Amazon. The thing I love most about these Hex Flex paints is that they're super thick, because usually when I apply metallic paints, you usually need to do a lot of coats because they're so thin, or you can do a base coat underneath, but with these Hex Flex paints, they already go on really thick, so I only really need about 2 to 3 coats of them, and like I love them. And yeah, I think I was up till 3 or 4 AM painting that night. It really took a lot of willpower to keep going, but I did it, and the paint didn't look too bad. So it was now Friday, which was the morning I needed to leave, and the gun was still not finished. So I quickly went on to the pink upholstered part, so this is just me measuring out the foam against the gun, and I did this before the gun was painted in case the paint was still wet. So I took 1 layer of this upholstery foam and sandwiched that in between 2 layers of fabric. I marked out the diagonal lines with a ruler so they were spaced out evenly, and then I sewed everything together on my machine. After checking these fit against the gun properly, which they did thankfully, I just attached these with contact adhesive. And the gun was finally finished, and it was time to leave. Okay, so I lied. The gun wasn't totally finished, but it was as much as I could finish it before I had to leave. So as soon as I got to my hotel room in London, I was painting again till nearly 2 AM that night. And I also had to trim the wig in my hotel room, but the costume was now ready to wear, and I would have to debut it the following day at the League of Legends MSI Finals. Despite the stress, I think it was definitely worth it, and I had so much fun at the rest of the MSI event. Even though I don't play League as much as I used to when I was younger, I still always have so much fun at every event that Riot puts on. Even if you know nothing about League at all, I think you can still enjoy these events just because the atmosphere, like the crowd and all like the visuals on stage is just so cool to watch. And honestly, it's just a really cool place to be. My boyfriend also took these really amazing photos of me during some of the games. We were only there for like 10 seconds, but they turned out so well, and I think they're a really cool memory to have. After the matches, we also got to go backstage to see where the teams had sat during the games, which was really cool. As usual, there were no EU teams in the finals, so I wanted BLG to win purely because I really liked their colours and aesthetic, but sadly they lost, so... And then we got to see the trophy up close as well, so that was really, really cool. This was my third time getting to cosplay at a League of Legends esports event, and I know it sounds probably lame, but League really was one of the things that inspired me to start cosplaying seriously. Back in 2015, I think it was, Jinx was my first League cosplay, and I also consider that my first like proper big cosplay because I had a big prop and everything, and I was really proud of it at the time. And I did play League a lot as well back then, and like I said, I don't really play it as much these days, but I'm still constantly inspired by all the art and the skins and the designs that come out of the characters. As a cosplayer, something I look for most is the character design. League honestly just continues to outdo itself in that department, and for years, because I was so into League, one of my biggest cosplay goals was to get invited to cosplay at one of these events. Like, that was top of my list for my cosplay goals, and now that that's happened multiple times, it feels really surreal, and I'm forever grateful for these opportunities, and I never want to take those for granted. But I couldn't rest for too long because the following weekend was MCM London Comic Con, which is one of our biggest conventions in the UK. I really wanted to finish up all the details that I hadn't had time to finish before on Caitlyn, so I started by finishing off the shoes by adding the bows and love heart details that I didn't have time to add before, and I love how they look now. They look so much better in my opinion. I also had time to repaint some bits of the gun, add some airbrushing details, and here is the proper final reveal of the gun in all its fully painted glory. I promised myself I wouldn't con crunch again, but because I only had 3 days between getting back from MSI and leaving again for MCM, I was again working on this till the very last minute, so I quickly finished everything up, then headed to London once again. I felt really confident wearing Caitlyn this time now that I'd had time to finish everything to the standard that I wanted, including styling the wig properly, which I liked so much better. And I got to do a proper photo shoot this time. I shot with my friend Smell250, who I have shot with for years at MCM. He's always so much fun to work with, and we definitely see eye to eye on the pastel colour palettes. So finally I will show you the results of this photo shoot, and now I can finally say I think Caitlyn is done.